everyone, and welcome back to Alpine Intel's The Savvy Adjuster podcast. Now, whether you've been listening since we started or are fairly new, you know that this is where we discuss insurance-related topics that are important to adjusters, attorneys, and other insurance professionals with the experts who know them best. I'm your host, Senior Account Manager Chris Nichols. Now, Alpine Intel is always dedicated to innovation across not only the property field, but auto, liability, and workers' comp insurance fields. We help our customers reach peak performance throughout the policy life cycle. We do have a number of services under our umbrella to meet each of our client partners' specific needs, but sometimes you may need the help of more than one expert. And that's what we'll be talking about today related to auto claims. We have Curtis Whitfill, who is Vice President of SIU Compliance and CE Programs at VRC Investigations, who previously joined the Savvy Adjuster podcast to talk about the importance of these types of investigations. And we're also joined with Brennan Clark, a forensic engineer at Component Testing Laboratories. Gentlemen, thank you for joining us today.
Hey, great to be here.
Yeah, pleasure to be here.
Well, listeners, I told you just a little bit about our guests, but I would love for you to learn a little bit more about them. Curtis, for those who missed your previous podcast appearances, would you be so kind as to remind us a little bit about your background?
Sure. So I've been pretty fortunate to spend my career doing what I'm passionate about. And it's all about insurance fraud and investigations, helping insurance adjusters and people understand how insurance fraud occurs. I've had a number of roles over the years, from police officer to forensic investigator to accident reconstructionist. And those experiences have helped me, see more of a different perspective from all angles of the industry. I'm a licensed claim adjuster. I hold certifications like the Certified Fraud Examiner and Certified Insurance Fraud Investigator. And I've had the opportunity to work with the Texas Department of Insurance, USAA, Avis Budget Group, and now VRC Investigations. And at this point in my career, I spent a lot of my time teaching. So if someone walks away from one of my talks with one new idea or a technique that they can use in their day-to-day work, then I feel like I've done my job.
Sure. Well, appreciate you being here again. And Brendan, we were talking before the recording. I believe you're coming up on year 12 with Component Testing Laboratories. But that being said, same question to you. Would love to hear just a little bit more about your background.
Yeah, Chris. So yeah, as you mentioned, been with Donham for 12 years now. Started off in the property side of things, doing investigations on product failures, working with HVAC and water heaters. And for the past 6 years or so, kind of moved into the world of automotive, looking more from the data side of things, working with kind of several tools we've been looping into our tool belt, doing accident investigations and analyzing crash data to try and determine the outcomes of some claims.
Awesome. Well, again, thanks to you again for joining us here today. I'm very excited about this topic. It's one I know a little bit about, but am looking forward to learning a lot more about. And just a quick disclaimer before we jump in: each claim is unique, and we do speak in general terms on this podcast. That's why it's important to get an expert assessment to make sure you have accurate facts for your settlement decisions that account for all the evidence related to the claim. But that being said, let's dive in. Curtis, we'll start with you. When an adjuster has an auto claim that they want to verify details about, where would you suggest they start to look to get that reliable information?
So when it comes to reliable information, that's the key here, right? There's two really primary sources that they initially get it from. One is their own internal company data, looking at the experience that they've had with that particular person. How many years have they been with them? What types of cars do they have insured? Do they have other products with that company? Or is this the only vehicle that they have insured, and they've only been there 2 weeks and they've all of a sudden got a claim, or 2 days or 2 hours and all of a sudden have a claim. So all of that makes a difference in how the adjuster views the claim from the onset and how it kind of sets the stage for what they might do next. The second group of information that could be considered reliable but sometimes isn't is the information that actually comes from the insured or the claimant. The information that they're providing to the insurance company to help prove their claim and to show that, hey, I've been in an accident or I've had something happen, and you're my insurance company, or you're the one that's responsible for this, so you're going to, pay my claim. The adjuster begins that dialogue with them. They begin talking about the accident, keeping it probably casual and trying to get set things off on a good tone. And one of the first things the adjuster looks at is the police report. It's almost always going to have a police report, regardless of the incident involving an auto, whether it's an auto theft, a crash, vandalism, anything that could occur that's involving an auto generally requires some sort of police report. And then from there, the adjuster just starts figuring out their plan and starts evaluating the information and making determinations. Is it reliable, or is it not reliable, or does it need, additional investigation?
Can you speak to a little bit about the different types of video sources that an adjuster might pull from as far as, getting video evidence for that specific claim?
So when we talk about video, it's so prevalent today. There could be dash cams that vehicles have, could be the other vehicle has a dash cam, but your car didn't, could be dash cams from other vehicles that were nearby, could be that stuff gets posted to social media later and shows up. It could be that you want to look and see if businesses nearby, if this occurred in a business district where there are security cameras mounted on the walls of those um, businesses, that you could just go knock on the door and say, hey, is that camera working? And that sort of thing. Could be at an intersection where you have to go to a municipality and contact them and say, was this camera operational? Is there a way I can get a copy of that? Could be the police officer shows up there and their dash cam is running, and it may not, capture the actual event, but it may provide details right after the accident that are important. So the video sources come from a variety of different things, and it's, sometimes we get asked to go and locate those things, and we can do that from behind a desk because we have the experience and we know where to go look and how to ask and how to do requests. And then sometimes it requires sending somebody out to the scene to actually do, physical inspection of the scene, looking to see where these cameras are. But some of that information, like I mentioned earlier, could just come from social media, or it could be posted on the internet out there and readily available.
Can you speak to also, and we talked about this on a previous episode that you had joined us on, about the importance of canvassing a neighborhood and even pulling video from maybe neighbors' Ring doorbells as well?
Yeah, just whenever you approach these types of investigations, you just have to think really broadly and think about all the possibilities. With like I said, it's so prevalent now that videos are everywhere. And if we just think about this just a little deeply and say, you know what, I wonder if, this person had a camera that, check it out, explore it. And like I said, if you contact, VRC, we have specialists that do this every day. They know where to look, things that maybe not even have thought about, places you wouldn't even think about getting video from.
Yeah, I feel like the outlier in my neighborhood on our group text chain, because I'm the only one without a Ring doorbell camera, which I probably should get, but I do find myself relying on my neighbors saying, "Hey, around 10 o'clock last night, did you see a package on our front porch?" And so I probably need to get on that. That certainly helps out. So, well, I appreciate you sharing those insights there, Curtis. Now, Brennan. We'll flip over to you. Your focus is more on a different kind of witness, if you will, the actual automobile. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so as I mentioned before, kind of from the CTL and our focus on auto investigations, we rely more on the vehicle's data that is being stored by the car itself. So while you might have an eyewitness who's sitting there and says, "Hey, so and so was flying," I'm sure everybody's dealt with a situation where you have an eyewitness statement that doesn't quite match up with what's going on the road. Modern cars, starting in about 2012, federal regulation was passed that required, if a car is recording information on its event data recorder, or kind of common term for that. Think of it like a black box in an airplane. That data needs to be made publicly available. So while there's some auto manufacturers that had stuff going all the way back to the early 90s, general guideline 2012 and forward, you're going to start to see cars that are recording a lot more information than you may be aware of. Things like the braking, the speed of the vehicle, the accelerator pedal input of the vehicle, steering wheel input of the vehicle. When you get into more modern vehicles, you start to get a lot of cool stuff, even down to like GPS coordinates with date and time stamps of when events might have happened. So I know previously you'd mentioned kind of the idea of, hey, we have so and so, their claim started on or they got their insurance policy Tuesday the 8th. We've got a claim on Thursday the 10th that they're saying occurred 2 days after they set their policy or whatever. So really neat stuff as far as being able to kind of more black and white ones and zeros type information that you're going to get. They can answer some simple questions for you like that before you get into the full in-depth, more accident reconstruction type heavy duty cases.
Sure. And you actually answered a question that I was going to ask. But as far as a general guideline for adjusters, you mentioned a good guideline is 2012 or past that as far as vehicles that you can really pull a decent amount of data from. Is that accurate?
Yeah, so I would say that's a good rule of thumb. I wouldn't be discouraged if you got an earlier car that you just might not have as robust data, or for example, your GM, Chevys, Fords, those are all going back into the 90s as far as the ability to pull data on them. It's just you might not get something as great as the latest, greatest 2025 car has available.
Sure.
But 2012 is a good rule of thumb. At this point, I believe they're pushing close to 70 total manufacturers that are available. So anything from a Ford Pinto to a Lamborghini Aventador, there's got to be information available on it.
Sure. Well, and any information is good information, right? So that it always anything you can gather can certainly help the claim move forward a little bit more. Brennan, I want to stick with you. You mentioned some data that is found on, let's call it the black box, right? Tell if the car was braking or what the speed was before impact. But I'm kind of curious because it is a massive distraction these days. What about if a driver is suspected of maybe being on their phone, maybe even if they don't admit that? Can you talk a little bit about what kind of data an adjuster may be able to get as far as phone usage at the time of the accident?
Yeah, so as far as kind of phones are involved, that starts to breach into the world of what's called an infotainment download. So as you'll know, more modern cars, you're seeing more and more of the big screens in your car, being able to sync up your phones, pair to your Bluetooth, play whatever song you want on there, along with them offering us that great flexibility and convenience. Turns out they also do track a lot of that information in the vehicle. So through those infotainment downloads, we can find things like text call logs. These are all going to come with timestamps associated with them. So if you do have some case where you suspect you might have distracted driving involved, that could be an indicator that's something we can kind of sync up with the timeline of events and say, hey, you just so happen to be texting your mom at 2:54 when your accident occurred. We think you might have been distracted during that event.
Sure, absolutely. And as far as, infotainment is, at least to me, kind of a new word that I'm learning more about. Similar to the question that I had of how far back do vehicles go with the crash data retrieval, is infotainment data relatively new? Is there kind of a general guideline of when you can pull that sort of detail?
Yeah, so the infotainment world, we're lucky on the CDR, EDR side. There's federal regulation dictates what you have to have, what's available. Infotainment at this point is somewhat of the Wild West in the fact of it's what's available is what's available. So there's not going to be that clean cutoff like a 2012 where the regulation goes into effect. Generally speaking, I'd say looking back anywhere from like 2013, 14 up to your newer vehicles are going to be available for that type of information.
Yeah, just kind of curious about that. It sounds like there's a lot of technology involved in the evidence gathering process, and not only involved but available for adjusters. And Curtis, I want to flip back to you. I'm curious how adjusters can then use this information that either themselves or someone like VRC Investigations has gathered for them for the future of that claim.
You know, Chris, whenever we talk about video evidence or CDR that Brennan's talking about, again, I encourage, adjusters always to just think about what's possible to gather, especially in those situations where you really, need to get some evidence because you have all these indicators thinking this may not be legitimate, but how am I going to prove it? What data is available? I want to talk about something that I haven't spoke to yet about to our listeners, and one is LPR. So that's called license plate readers, and that has quickly become a tool that SIU investigators have begun to use. It's become readily available, and many people may not know about it or even think about it being possible. But let me tell you a little bit about how that works. Most people don't even realize that LPR is being captured on their vehicle as they drive around. We're thinking traffic lights, bridges. If you go to the airport, it's capturing your license plate, and businesses and governmental places use it for a variety of reasons. But there's also vehicles that are driving around just like police cars have license plate readers on it, and they're looking for stolen cars. But you also have just private vehicles equipped with that same technology driving around. And this may not be comfortable for some people, but that data is out there available to retrieve and use in an investigation. So they're going through parking lots, they're going through shopping centers, they're going through residential areas, just capturing license plates and putting them in this data. For an SIU investigator, from our standpoint, this technology is very useful because what we can do with that LPR data is think about if we're working a case where it's a garaging location, it's an underwriting case, and they're insuring their car in one state, and it turns out, the cars, they're saying that they're, buying cheaper insurance in another state, but the car is never there. So that license plate reader basically shows us that this car is always, here. But think about a claim detecting pre-existing damage. Some of these license plate readers actually take a little bit broader photograph than just the plate. It gets like the back end of the car or the front end of the car. So if they have damage that they're claiming, or they're claiming damage occurred at a different time, that could be something that shows up on the plate. Where you have situations where they're staged accidents and they're saying that this vehicle was involved in a wreck. And staged accidents occur where people are just saying that things like this car was in this location when it wasn't. And that LPR data could prove that that vehicle wasn't even where they said it was at. And then thinking about rate evasion, which we talked about, but what about commercial use? You've got a vehicle that somebody's insuring and they're saying that they just, use it for leisure, driving to and from work. Turns out they've got a commercial business and the insurance company that's not rated correctly, and they would be charging more if they knew that, and that might indicate that as well. And then, what about when we're interviewing people and getting down to the finite details of their claim, and we believe there's some inconsistencies and some lying going on about the claim? We could find out they weren't even where they said they were on a particular day, or information that they supplied. So, again, it's kind of unsettling for us to think about that all this data is out there, but at the same time, from an insurance investigation perspective, it's very useful data.
Well, and I've got personal experience, unfortunately, with LPRs as well. My city that I live in, there's no overnight parking, and occasionally I will forget to pull my car into the driveway. And I say occasionally, it's happened more than once. And the cars do drive around at night in my city with LPRs, reading license plates, and conveniently then printing out a ticket for $25 a pop. So I am very familiar with the LPRs, unfortunately, but very, very interesting stuff about all those scenarios that you had mentioned, them being used in. So, well, Brennan, I would love to flip over to you, get a little bit more information about how adjusters can use the information that they can get from component testing laboratories to really help the future of a claim. And I know we touched on 3D scans, but I'm sure there's a bunch of information you can share with us here today. So,
Yeah, so as far as the component testing laboratory and when we begin getting involved in a claim, kind of our recommendation at that point is typically to gather as much data as you can. Point being, on an insurance claim, you never know when you're going to have access to that vehicle again. You may end up that a year down the line, somebody decides they didn't like the decision that they got on their insurance claim. They want to go ahead and open up litigation against you, and then you're having to go back and review that file. So as far as our service lines, being able to have the crash data retrieval download done, being able to have a 3D scan of the vehicle done to kind of memorialize what that damage is that's on the vehicle, really gives you an opportunity that, hey, whether it be 2 weeks from now or a year from now, we're going to be able to have an accurate representation and snapshot of what was going on with that vehicle at the time of the loss. Along with that, to that point of the 3D scans, uh, it kind of also allows us to tailor our service along. At the beginning, you may just only need that snapshot of you're looking, hey, were they speeding? Were they not speeding? And at that point in time, a EDR download is going to give you a clear indication of that. It's going to be black and white. They're going 55 miles an hour. It's a 35 zone. But should you later on end up, hey, we need to get like a full accident reconstruction done on this vehicle. Our 3D scanning technology is really neat. It uses photogrammetry to allow us to kind of combine LiDAR technology with the photographs themselves and come up with accurate to the centimeter level measurements of damage that might be present on that car. So similar to what was going on with the license plate readers, where you may have somebody present, hey, here's the damage from my claim. They come back later, file a second claim that they say they got new damage on their car. They just took the check from the original and never repaired the original damage. Hey, we can show you last time we were out there, we documented the condition of the car. That same damage that's present, it's still 12 centimeters long, just like it was last time.
it's amazing the accuracy of that to the centimeter, right?
Yeah.
I'm always that's very interesting. The 3D scans. I'm always interested how the sausage is made, if you will. And so I'd love for you to kind of continue talking about those 3D scans. Is it you showing up to a claim site? Is it you getting the vehicle back? Is it multiple cameras surrounding the vehicle? I would love to hear a little bit more about how you get that scan.
Yeah, so we actually implement some technology. It's a pretty simple mechanism of it uses a combination of the built-in camera on your cell phone along with essentially an antenna that connects it to a highly accurate GPS network. So while it's using the LiDAR sensor off your cell phone, it's also pinging in real time to a GPS server that's able to kind of pinpoint those exact points in space and time on where it's looking. And that's kind of how we're able to, one, take all those images that it's taken around the car and stitch them together into a 3D model that you can scroll, look around at, and have something that's kind of a presentable, easy exhibit should you need to go to court to show the vehicle condition, as well as give you that accuracy that you're getting on your measurements.
Sure. Well, I appreciate that. Yeah, I wasn't sure if it was like how they make video games where they put a bunch of those tiny little ping pongs all over the car and then
Uh,
do a scan or
Somewhat close.
yeah.
Yep. So we have a couple what they give you ground capture points that you put around the car to kind of assist the GPS system with locking down where it is in space. But it's a relatively quick process. Basically, you're going to end up doing a few laps around the car from different vantage points with your camera as you scan the vehicle and then send it off to the cloud to be computed and put into that 3D model.
Oh, very cool. That's interesting stuff. Well, I want to switch to red flags, right? I'm sure they come up in some claims, and Curtis will bounce back over to you. What should some red flags be, or what are some red flags in your opinion to look for in auto claims that would indicate you really should go kind of the extra mile and gather as much information as you can on that claim?
So, you know, the way technology is, and hearing Brennan talk about this stuff, it's just like, in this industry, if you blink, you miss, some of the, really interesting and beneficial technologies that are out there. But some things don't ever change, and that's when we talk about red flags. If something seems suspicious, we're looking at vehicle red flags. Could be damage doesn't match the alleged incident. In other words, you're looking at pictures of the damage and it doesn't really equate to what they described or what they originally reported. Recently or purchased or newly registered vehicles, so it's always a question. It just changed ownerships, that sort of thing. Salvage titles, out-of-state registration. So it could be vehicle related to the red flag, or could be something that comes up with the insured or the claimant. History of multiple claims, overly eager to settle, refusal or delay in providing requested documentation, which is always a red flag. Yeah, I'll send that to you, but then they never send you the document they agreed to send. And then policy red flags, again, brand new policy. So there's a combination of things that adjusters just basically know what to look for, and they review this stuff, and we talk about it a lot in our training sessions because it's so important to distinguish, what's a red flag, what's questionable, why we would need to do additional investigation, a deeper dive into this, and what, it could mean the difference between, paying a claim that's not legitimate and it's in a line of claims that should have never been paid and no adjuster ever caught them, to one adjuster saying, you know what? Let me look at this a little more, getting information, maybe even getting some information from the CDR. And now you've got enough data to say this one's fraudulent. And it turns out it was related to a lot of other claims. And you've ended up solving, something that's kind of does a greater good for the whole industry. People that, didn't deserve to get paid, that just kept going on because people were going through the motions and paying these claims. But you were different. You stood in the gap there and said, you know what, let me just look at this a little bit more closely. So I really, admire when adjusters do that. And even though it might be harder day for them and more work for them, they do the right thing. And that's always refreshing to see.
Yeah, absolutely. Brennan, anything to kind of piggyback on Curtis's answer as far as what you've seen, potential red flags that it may indicate you should, again, go the extra mile, loop in somebody like the component testing laboratories to really gather all the information that you can?
Yeah, so agreed. He kind of hit a lot of the points there on the red flags. Uh, Similar things with those stage accidents is something that on our side that the data really helps to highlight. We kind of go, we're on the second wave of things. So after you might have the suspicion of the adjuster that something gets their hackles up of, hey, something's just not adding up right here. Let's go ahead and go ahead and get the data on this car. Something as simple as a stage collision. Somebody decides they want to run their forklift into their car and then say that they were in an accident. Real simple to do a download on the vehicle, see cars in park going 0 miles per hour and somehow has a impact to the side of the vehicle. Doesn't really add up with the story of them saying they were driving and got hit by some ghost car that took off afterwards. But as far as the red flags, the other key point to this is it's not always just going to be something that's a suspicious activity. I actually had personal experience myself recently where, from the data side, I was involved in a car accident about a month ago myself. Uh, Being in this industry, knowing what data is available in my own car, I could also kind of defend myself and say, hey, I know what I was doing when I was in the car. I can make my statement, but let me go ahead and request that my insurance company go forward and kind of get something that can defend myself here and prove not only just my recorded statement I make, but also show you here's the data showing I was driving straight in my lane. And in my case, I just so happened to have a semi truck merge into me. So, really, really important that, hey, there is suspicious activity, but also you can use this to validate kind of what you think is already going on, whether it's suspicious or not.
Sure. Well, and it goes without saying, but we are glad you are all right
Yeah.
because that sounds like a pretty harrowing experience. So,
Yeah.
um, well, we definitely, we want to let adjusters know that at Alpine Intel, we do deal in facts. We are fact investigators. We rely on what the facts and evidence tells us, whichever way it goes. But at the same time, and we always kind of like to end the episode on real cases, right? That you both have worked. I'm assuming with your vast experience at your respective jobs, you have some stories that you can tell about different auto assignments that you've worked on and what they've unveiled. Curtis, would love to start with you if you have any sort of investigations you've dealt with on the auto side that our listeners might find valuable to hear about.
So I've got one to share. This was occurred in Philadelphia. It's a classic hit and run, but has a little twist to it. So a guy reported that there was damage all the way to the left side of his car, completely down from front end to the back end. And he claimed he was just sitting in the vehicle parked downtown Philadelphia. And he said that a truck, a delivery truck, big box delivery truck, had just sideswiped him and just kept going. And right away, the red flags started flying on this case. He wouldn't meet for an interview. He wouldn't provide proof of ownership. He flat out refused to show repair records. He had just purchased the vehicle, many of the things that we talked about earlier. And instead, he just submitted a few snapshots and then demanded that he cut a check and did what career fraudsters do a lot. They yell a lot and they try and intimidate people and they try and get their way by just, threatening people and that sort of thing. So digging a little deeper, we found out the car had been bought as salvage, already totaled. And then, fast forward a little bit quicker in the investigation, a little bit further down the road in the investigation, we turned out he had done this at least 15 times to different insurance companies, and he never was at the locations that he said he was at. In fact, the license plate readers that we looked at, he never even drove these vehicles. He would buy salvage, have the paper, and claim this incident occurred, walk over to the Philadelphia local police station, walk up, do a desk report. They never investigated anything because he was standing right there with all the information the other vehicle left. So when you start thinking about that, here's a situation where it was really easy for him to replicate and do this, and he did it a lot. We actually had done surveillance on him just to see what he was doing, and he worked at the airport in Philadelphia, so he had a regular job. This was just his side hustle, buying salvage and filing insurance claims. And he didn't do it like, every month. He'd do it like every 2 or 3 months. He kind of spread it out a little bit, not to draw attention to himself.
What a side hustle. I mean, I've heard about returning cans for aluminum. I've heard of mowing lawns, but that's quite a high side hustle. 15 times, geez. That's pretty amazing. Well, interesting stuff, Curtis. Brendan, how about yourself? Any with your vast experience at component testing laboratories, any specific auto assignment kind of stand out to you?
Yeah, so that and kind of one thing with component testing lab. So we are involved in the auto side of things. From the data side, we also have our own uh, forensic engineering side that we're able to support kind of anything we come across with having a mechanical engineer do a physical inspection of a vehicle, right? So a lot of times we will get these claims where somebody is purporting, hey, there was a mechanical malfunction with my vehicle and it caused me to have this accident. So in this instance, this was a grocery store in, I believe it was Maryland, if I recall correct, where somebody ended up pulling out of the parking lot. Next thing you know, their car is in the produce section of the grocery store, and they say, I was pulling out, and then my car just took off with me, and there's nothing I could do about it. So in that case, as you can imagine, between the grocery store, the amount of damage done there, and the damage and injuries on the vehicle, you start to get a lot of bodies involved, and you get manufacturers involved, wanting to do full teardowns of the car and looking at the mechanics on it. Kind of where we're able to intervene and offer a simpler solution there was we ended up doing a CDR data pull on that vehicle. And what you'll find in 5 seconds before that car ended up in the produce section was that the accelerator pedal was depressed to 99% and that the brake pedal was never applied during that whole process. So in these instances, you end up with a driver misidentifying what pedals want. And you can have somebody who swears up and down that, hey, my car malfunctioned. We need to get the manufacturer involved here. When at the end of the day, unfortunately, simple mistake, but also something that kind of bears out easy enough on the front end with that data pull, and you can kind of avoid the long drawn out process of having to fully disassemble a car, inspect every element of it, and do these long drawn out engineering inspections with the manufacturer.
Well, those two examples, which I appreciate you both sharing those real life examples, are reason to look to somebody like VRC Investigations or Component Testing Laboratories, because a lot of things can be involved and a lot of data is available that maybe the adjuster doesn't have right away. So, again, thank you both for being on the episode today to talk about all the different sources of information adjusters can use for vehicle claims. Curtis, Brennan, thank you again for joining us on the Savvy Adjuster podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Absolutely. And to our listeners, you can check out our show notes to learn more about auto claims. And don't forget to check out our resource library for a complete suite of services. We've been talking a lot about Component Testing Laboratory and VRC Investigation. A lot more services available through Alpine Intel. And that resource library is found, as always, at our website, which is alpineintel.com. Finally, make sure to subscribe to the Savvy Adjuster podcast so you never miss an episode. Thanks again for listening today, and we will see you next time.